Hey everybody, today I thought I'd do something a little different and do a little Bible teaching on the story of Christmas. Why? Because have you ever read that and said, real people wouldn't act that way? Think about it. Mary and Joseph supposedly don't know babies come in 9 months. And so they jump on the donkey, fly up, and all of a sudden they're surprised. They fly up to Bethlehem, clippity clop, clippity clop, and they get there and realize, oh, there's no room in the hotel. And so they bang on every door in town, the town that Joseph is from. And because of the shame, supposedly, of Mary's pregnancy, nobody will let them in the door. Do you know anywhere that that's possible? I don't. I've lived in African and North African Arab cultures. Simply not possible. And then what about the um, shepherds? Do you remember the shepherds? They're out in the hills, and all of a sudden, this amazing choir shows up. Not of like cherub, robe gown, but this is the host of heavenly armies. This is a military choir singing and they telling them that the Messiah is going to be born. And so they go and they find the baby in a stable surrounded by animals, and they're like, "Oh, let's worship God," and then go home and leave him there. Does that make sense to anybody? Sure, it doesn't make sense to me. And part of this is because it goes back to a reading of the story. Luke just says that there was a census. Now, we recently did a census in the United States. They did one in Canada when I was there. It takes months and months and months. They had time to get there. The scriptures simply say that Mary and Joseph went to Bethlehem, and when the time came. Well, what do we do this problem with there's no room in the inn? Well, the Greek word there is the same word that's used later on for the upper room where Da Vinci's famous painting was supposedly done. This is where Jesus holds the Last Supper in the upper room, or the guest room. So one reading, which the NIV gets right, doesn't always get stuff right, but does, it says, they arrived and there was no room in the guest room. Now, Bethlehem was a small hamlet, a village that probably didn't have enough people to have a hotel. And Jerusalem was in walking distance. So how do we see the story then? Mary and Joseph, knowing that there was going to be a birth, moved to Bethlehem. There they got there, and there was no room in the guest room. And so most likely, according to Kenneth Bailey and several other scholars, what happened was that they moved in with family, poor family. The point of the story is not that the people of Bethlehem were mean, but the point of the story is that the people of Bethlehem were poor, and that Jesus was not born in a palace, which the wise men went looking for 2 years later, but in a commoner's home. We know that they were poor. Why? Because after Jesus was born, 8 days later, they show up in the temple and they offer 2 turtle doves, the offering of the poorest person. So what happened? A young couple moved because of the census, and they came to town. The town's full because people are back in town for the census, and they moved in with family, and there Jesus was placed in a manger. Now, part of it is we think either mangers are not movable. Well, they might be. That stables are not connected to homes, quite likely, because in poor areas, and even today in many areas of Europe or nice areas, the stable is still connected to the home. Or even as, again, I'm quoting Kenneth Bailey, Jesus Through Middle Eastern Eyes, that the hole for the manger would have the house would have been in 3 layers: the upper room, the middle room, and the lower room. And the lower room is where the animals would be brought in for night for safety, but it also provided warmth for the house. And on the edge of the middle room would be a hole dug in the ground, and that would be the manger. And here's the thing: every child in Bethlehem would be placed in a manger. It was common. The story is not one of crazy, mean people, of stupid teenagers who don't know that Jesus is going to be born after 9 months, that they're not aware that they have the Messiah, and that the shepherds, when they show up, don't actually have the common sense to take Jesus home. If you read it that way, the story doesn't make sense. But if you read it the way the text actually shows, then a young couple goes staying with relatives, having the birth of a normal person, a poor person. Villagers come to visit, shepherds come to visit, and they declare that this is the Messiah. Not because he's born in a stable. There's no stable in the story. Not because he's surrounded by animals. There's no animals. The only thing that the entire construct is built is the manger. And the manger was either portable or in the family home. And there a king was born among common people. Emmanuel, God with us. Not with the rich only. Not with those who are separated from us, but walking with us, the Son of David, the promised Messiah. So as you read the Christmas story, enjoy your nativity. Enjoy the fact that we see all this beautiful imagery. But let's not think the people of Bethlehem to be harsh and cruel. Let's not think the shepherds to be dumb and heartless to not take Jesus home. But let's understand the story for how it's told. It's shocking, it's surprising, because Jesus comes to us, normal people, in a normal situation. So I hope that doesn't mess your nativity up too much. But for me, it makes reading the Bible real, because these are real people in a real context. And into this context came Jesus, born of a virgin, lived a perfect sinless life, died on a cross, and 3 days later rose from the grave. All of these things happened in time and space so that we could have a relationship with God. Initiated, prophesied for hundreds of years, but initiated in that moment in a very common place, in a common birth among common people. Merry Christmas, everyone.